Good evening, everybody. We'll just wait for a minute more so that we have few more people attending the webinar.
Sir, namaskar.
Hi, Pankaj. Good evening. Good to have you with us
How are you,
today.
sir? Thank you, sir.
We are all doing
It's a
fine.
pleasure to be with you, sir. Sir. Actually, I'm in JNK right
Oh,
now.
yes. I hope things are fine. Are you able to
Yeah,
hear us
absolutely fine, sir.
properly? All right. So good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to have all of you today again on Saturday evening. Today being our 82nd episode, it's fantastic to have some great speakers with us as we go into this edition of DigiConnect. We are going to have with us three esteemed speakers. We have with us Dr. Tanushri Mishra, who's joining us from Bhubaneswar, and she's going to deliver the topic upon improving outcomes in locally advanced head and neck cancer. We have Dr. Pankaj Arora, who's the Director and Financial Advisor at Ministry of Health. And we also have Dr. Rajiv with us. So before I do the formal introductions, again, I welcome all of you to this forum. And it's going to be an interesting next session of on head and neck cancer. So at the outset, let me introduce Dr. Tanushri. She is presently working as the Insurance Medical Officer at ESI Hospital, Bhubaneswar. She has been quite an expert and well-versed with most of the radiotherapeutic techniques, whether it's 3D CRT, IMRT, VMAT. She's also having a significant experience in chemotherapy for all solid malignancies. And during her 6 years training at the Regional Cancer Institute, she's an eminent expert out in the region. And today she's actually going to help us have a better understanding of improving the outcomes in locally advanced head and neck cancer. Can I invite you, Dr. Mishra, to initiate the proceedings? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm now sharing my screen to start my presentation without wasting time. Shall I proceed, sir?
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Mishra, as sir has introduced me. So I'll be talking about improving outcomes in the management of locally advanced head and neck cancer. So the topics I'll be covering, that is the epidemiology of head and neck cancer, something about the risk factors and what are the treatment modalities available, and little bit about them, and last but not least about the targeted therapies. So coming to the incidence, according to the Globacon 2018 data, we can see in the world, the most common cancer are the lungs, breast, and then colorectal, followed by prostate. But in India, the scenario is something different, that we are having a separate entity like oral cavity carcinoma. It constitutes as a major component comparing with its incidence of breast cancer. So we must all be concerned about this oral cavity cancer. So all of us, we know that what are the common risk factors for this cancer, that is the chewing tobacco, pouching tobacco, and poor oral hygiene, BD, cigarette smoking. And apart from that, nowadays the increasing incidence of HPV positive cases has come up in a great way in oral cavity carcinoma also. Previously, it was proved in carcinoma cervix, but due to the changing lifestyle of people, so oral cavity cancer, oropharyngeal cancer, they have also become HPV positive. But thing is that these HPV positive cases, they have better response towards treatment, but HPV negative cases, they are having a poor response. We'll be talking about it later. Now, what are the signs symptoms? As common physicians, we all must know that when a patient will come to us with a sore or ulceration in the mouth, or any discoloration of mouth that is black, white, or red, or any friable growth, any bleeding point, or an exophytic growth, or any swelling in the neck that is hard to form to touch, and more than 2 weeks of duration, we must raise a suspicion in our mind that it might be a carcinoma. So we'll send the patient to proper channel to a pathologist for diagnosis, and after proper staging, we'll come to the management. So according to the stage, we'll manage the case. The standardized dictum in all over world is that for localized tumors, we have stage 1, stage 2 tumor, we have either surgery or radiotherapy. Single modality of treatment is sufficient. But in locally advanced cases that are up to stage 4B, we must go for surgery followed by adjuvant chemoradiation or radiation, depending upon the histopathology report. And in some unresectable bad cases, which we say bad case in our language, in those cases where the hope is very less for the patient, there we go for concurrent chemoradiation either, or we can go for chemotherapy. If the patient cannot tolerate chemotherapy, only radiation. And in metastatic cases, only combination chemotherapy. But now with advent of targeted therapy, we have some hope for these people. This subgroup of people, they constitute major bulk of head and neck carcinoma, and we have a hope that we can use targeted therapy along with radiotherapy to improve survival in these patients. So regarding the milestones in management of head and neck carcinoma, starting from 80s to 2020 era, we have come across first invent of chemotherapeutic agent, multi-agent chemotherapy, cisplatin, 5-FU. Then came the organ preservation era. Everyone were talking about organ preservation, basically in carcinoma cervix, carcinoma larynx cases, where you can preserve the voice of the patient using different chemotherapeutic agents and along with radiotherapy. Then came the Taxane era. Taxane is a highly potent chemotherapeutic agent. It has a better outcome as compared to cisplatin 5-FU alone. Then came the targeted therapy, that is cetuximab was the first drug approved in head and neck carcinoma. Now the nimetuzumab. We'll be talking regarding little bit about everything. So first is concurrent chemoradiation. First landmark trial was by Alderstein et al. He randomized the patients into 2 groups. Half of them received radiotherapy alone, half of them received concurrent chemoradiation, cisplatin 5-FU, 5 days, day 1 to day 4, then again day 22 to day 25. And those patients were all locally advanced, stage 3 to stage 4 cases. And after treatment, he observed about the 5-year overall survival, relapse-free survival, distance metastasis survival in every parameters. We can see the CTRT arm has better response compared to only radiotherapy arm. And with survival benefit for local control and overall survival, it has a p-value of significant less than 0.05. So it proved that CTRT is a better option than radiotherapy alone. Next came to the ARTUZ 9111 trial. It is a landmark trial in case of organ preservation as far as concerned about regarding the laryngeal cancer. Here the inclusion criteria were larynx cancer stage 3, stage 4, and stage 1, T1 and large T4 tumors were excluded from this group, and they were randomized into 3 groups. First group received cisplatin 5-FU followed by radiation. Second was radiotherapy concurrent with cisplatin. Third was radiotherapy alone. And here the primary endpoint was preservation of larynx. Secondary was the overall survival, disease-free survival, and all that we see in every study. So ARTUZ 9111 trial showed that there is a significant difference between in the laryngeal preservation rate as compared to the CTRT arm and the RT arm. Here the Kaplan-Meier curve shows that the radiotherapy with concurrent cisplatin is much higher as compared to this induction chemotherapy followed by radiation and radiotherapy alone arm. And regarding local regional control as far as concerned, here also CTRT arm has a better response. Next, the first year trial, this is the ARTUZ trial. It concluded that the patients with laryngeal cancer, radiotherapy with concurrent administration of cisplatin is superior to chemotherapy induction followed by radiotherapy or radiotherapy alone. Okay, so it's the proof thing. Next, coming to the Lancet data and McKenzie trial. McKenzie trial is a landmark trial in squamous cell carcinoma of head and neck. They concluded that this benefit of concomitant chemoradiotherapy in head and neck squamous cell carcinoma was confirmed and both definitive and post-operative settings. And indirect comparison between this neoadjuvant chemotherapy and this concomitant chemotherapy has proven that neoadjuvant chemotherapy has a concurrent chemotherapy has a better response than the neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So regarding larynx preservation, there are two landmark trials, that is the VA trial and the RTOJ trial, as we have discussed. They both concluded that concurrent cisplatin with RT had a better laryngeal preservation rate. So next is the induction chemotherapy. Induction chemotherapy concept came in 1980s, but with cisplatin 5-FU only. After Taxane came into market, the TPF trial, that is the TAX 323 trial, it's the landmark trial that changed the scenario in head and neck carcinoma. In locally advanced head and neck carcinoma, this trial has changed the scenario because it has proven that the progression-free survival and overall survival has better in TPF arm. The TPF is the addition of Taxane, that is docetaxel to cisplatin 5-FU, and in the PF arm they took cisplatin 5-FU. All were head and neck unresectable squamous cell carcinomas, excluding nasopharyngeal and nasal cavity carcinomas. After this induction chemotherapy, radiotherapy was given, and if possible, neck dissection was done. After that, the patient went for, if recurrence, then surgery. Then the result came out that progression-free survival was much higher as compared to the only PF arm with a p-value of 0.007. So Taxane trial also proved that overall survival and this progression-free survival in both way, it provide benefit as compared to the platinum 5-FU arm. Regarding toxicity also, though it is said that leukopenia and neutropenia are more in cases of TPF cases, but use of prophylactic antibiotic has prevented more hospital admission and death. Rather, there are more cases of grade 3-4 thrombocytopenia, nausea, vomiting, and death in case of PF group because of this platinum toxicity and contracted FU infusion. Next is the targeted therapy. It is the today's buzz. Every day and out, one molecules have been invented and coming to market. So everyone of us must be aware of this targeted therapy. So what are they? They are the particular agents that targets the particular receptors on the cell membrane or in the nucleus. So we are concerned on the cell membrane because the cell membrane receptors, that is the vascular endothelial growth factor receptor, this is the VEFGR and the EGFR, they mostly represent on the cell membrane, and more than 90% of head and neck carcinoma cases, they present EGFR. So we have something to block that EGFR receptor so that the proliferation, angiogenesis, and the proliferation of the cells can be stopped. So in this era, the first thing came to market was cetuximab when it was approved by FDA for use of head and neck carcinoma. Several trials were done, RTOJ 0522 trial, then the PISTA trial and the Melanor trial, but all of them, they did not show any significant outcome because in the RTOJ trial, there was no improvement in the overall survival or the PFS. In the second trial, though there was increase in the overall survival, but adverse side effect was there and deaths also there. So that trial also stopped. But the Warner trial, it simply compared only radiotherapy versus radiotherapy plus RT, and it showed that there is a significant overall benefit over RT alone in terms of overall survival. So this trial was accepted and cetuximab was there till nimetuzumab came. Nimetuzumab is the only anti-EGFR providing better data compared to chemotherapy, chemoradiation, and it can be given along with chemoradiation. So what is it? It is the humanized IgG1 type of monoclonal antibody that has bivalent binding site to EGFR. So it binds snugly to the EGFR receptor so that it acts better than its competitor. So coming to the overall response rate of nimetuzumab can be given along with CTRT. So when compared with CTRT and CTRT plus nimetuzumab, we can see that 100% response rate as compared to 70%. And if it is given only with RT, not with chemotherapy, and compared with only radiotherapy, we can see the 76% response rate. So the efficacy is much better. Next, we see that one best trial was there. It was a phase 2 trial. It compared CTRT nimetuzumab versus CTRT alone. And in the overall survival, the chemoradiation group and the nimetuzumab group, the overall survival was much higher. That is 57% 5-year survival rate, and compared much higher compared to the only CTRT arm. Here we can see that this Kaplan-Meier curve, the red curve is the NCT arm, where it shows much higher response as compared to the only CTRT arm. Next is the overall survival in nimetuzumab CTRT plus only RT. Here 5-year survival is 39% as compared least in that case of only RT arm. Now it is a phase 3 trial. Phase 3 trials are always accepted because it has a better result and convincing power over physicians. So it is the Pravash et al. Trial. It randomized the head and neck carcinoma cases into 2 arms. One, all were locally advanced stage 3, stage 4, and they excluded nasopharynx, salivary gland, nasal cavity, and those patients who had received radiotherapy or immunotherapy prior to this trial. So they were excluded. Only nerve patients were taken, and oropharynx, larynx, hypopharynx, oral cavity, all subsets were taken. They randomized into 2 groups: nimetuzumab, cisplatin radiation, or cisplatin radiation. So here the primary endpoint was the progression-free survival. Secondary was disease-free survival, local control, and overall survival. And the study design was like this. And interesting thing is the baseline characteristic in both the groups are similar. Means we can have highlighted few things that oropharynx cases almost similar in both the groups. Stage 4 cases almost similar in both the groups, and number of cycles completed also more than 7 cycles completed in almost equal number of patients in both the groups. So we can compare the result, and it's a convincing way. So we can see the progression-free survival achieved with biomarker, that is nimetuzumab cisplatin radiation versus only CTRT, is much higher as compared to this CTRTR, and the p-value is 0.0004. So we can see the significance. Next, the disease-free survival. Disease-free survival 2-year percentage rate in NCRT group is 60.2% as compared to 48.5%, where the p-value is also significant. Next is the local regional control. Also, you can see it is 67.5% compared to 57% in case of cisplatin arm only. So overall, we can see that it's a better drug, but we can be, it is also a concern that toxicity, because this maps has a greater toxicity profile. But here you can see that in the CTRT arm also, almost similar number of patients developed grade 3, grade 4 toxicity as compared to NCRT arm, and all grades of toxicity number is also similar. So that is not much show concern, and people can be managed conservatively with this minimal toxicity. Next, overall survival when compared, those patients who received more than 200 milligram per meter square cisplatin, they had almost comparable overall survival with nimetuzumab, but it is highly toxic and it has its other side effects. So this graph also you can see up to 48 months also it has a better survival rate as compared to CTRT alone. And here the median HPV negative cases, as we were talking previously, that they have a worse response to treatment, but nimetuzumab has been proved to be better as compared to cisplatin alone, along with radiation. So in HPV negative cases, the PFS, that is the progression-free survival, local regional control, and overall survival, all parameters are better in NCRT arm as compared to cisplatin radiation arm only. And with this positive note that this PFS, local regional control, and overall survival increment is addition of nimetuzumab to patients receiving chemoradiation in head and neck carcinoma, we can conclude that it's a it means it's the sun shining now. So we have the hope of race for this group of bad patients. They can have a better life with use of nimetuzumab. So the targeted therapy is on, and every day new molecules are coming up. Till now, nimetuzumab is the best. With this positive note, I am concluding my presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think that was quite a good understanding into how and what are the recent things in the head and neck cancers. I would rather request you to stay on for the proceedings. We would be having question answers towards the end of the session. Sure, I think I would request all of us to please hold on our question and answers. Now, in the next sequence, I would now like to invite Dr. Pankaj Arora for deliberating on the next topic. Dr. Pankaj Arora is the Director and Financial Advisor at National Health Authority, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Dr. Pankaj has been quite an eminent academician. He has been a gold medalist during his surgery days. Subsequent to that, he has also been a recipient of the National Award for Outstanding Service by Ministry of Railways. He has been an executive member of Association of Occupational Health Delhi, participant of ICO as well as IOH member. And he has done some great deliberations on several topics, right from the surgical aspects to public health and to occupational health. Today, we want to invite him to actually deliberate on an important session, which is transformation of the healthcare system of India through Ayushman Bharat. So welcome, Dr. Pankaj. I know that Dr. Pankaj is today dialing in from Kashmir. He's traveling, but really great that he has extended his time and he is dialing in remotely. We understand that the connection may be patchy, but Dr. Pankaj, we are out there to hear you out. Please go ahead, Dr. Pankaj.
Thank you. So I will just switch on my video because of the connection issue. So I'll just continue.
That's
with
absolutely fine, Dr.
Just on a
Pankaj.
brief note, to start with, sir, just I'll give a preview of what Ayushman Bharat is and what the change it has come with. I was a resident in surgery in 2003 in Meerut, and people came with 5 rupees in their pocket with nothing to do, nothing to have for the treatment as such. No food, no treatment money, and we had to take the things out of our box to treat those patients, maybe operation, maybe normal, maybe suturing. They didn't have even money to get sutures done. So Ayushman Bharat, Pradhan Mantri Jan Yojana just came out after as a child of National Policy 2017, which has given birth to 3 things. One is Ayushman Bharat PMJ, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. आयुष्मान भारत वेलनेस सेंटर जो कि 1.5 लाख हम लोग बन जा रहे हैं, 1000 से ऊपर बन चुके हैं, जो कि सब सेंटर से उन्हें कन्वर्ट किया गया. और तीसरा आयुष्मान भारत डिजिटल मिशन, जो कि अपने आप में एक आदमी के लिए एक भारत के निवासी. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, Dr. Pankaj, we can hear you.
तो सर ये अपने आप सरकार का एक बहुत ही बड़ा कदम है 2017 में जो वो क्या है, they have just implemented it in a way that it's amazing. I can you go on the previous slide, please? Yeah, so it was launched finally in September 2018. मतलब it was launched in 15 अगस्त को प्रधानमंत्री ने लॉन्च किया था. उसके बाद 23 सितंबर से इसका नेशनल हेल्थ एजेंसी के रूप में एक हमारी एजेंसी बनी, जिसको बाद में अथॉरिटी में कन्वर्ट कर दिया गया. तो ये सबसे बड़ी भारत की, बल्कि भारत की क्या, विश्व की सबसे बड़ी हेल्थ एश्योरेंस स्कीम है, जिसमें कि हम सेकेंडरी और टर्शरी केयर का पूरा इलाज कराते हैं. आयुष्मान भारत हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस सेंटर प्राइमरी केयर को देखेंगे. ये पूरा एक कंटिन्यूअस केयर का सिस्टम बनाया है. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. आई थिंक है थोड़ा सा बेसिकली हम लोग करीब उन पुअर फैमिलीज को कवर कर रहे हैं कि जो कि करीब 10-10.5 करोड़ हैं, जो कि करीब 54 करोड़ लोग बनते हैं. उनको हम 5 लाख का पूरा कवर 1 साल के लिए फ्री देते हैं. उसमें कोई कैप नहीं है फैमिली में. वो अगर एक फैमिली में 10 लोग भी हैं तो भी इस्तेमाल हो सकता है. कोई उसके एज लिमिट नहीं है कि वो 80 साल का तो उसको नहीं मिलेगा. उसको मिलता जो इंश्योरेंस कंपनी हमारी नहीं देती है नॉर्मली, वो इसमें देती है. कोई ये नहीं है कि अब कोई बीमारी पहले थी तो उसका इलाज और इसका बड़ा अच्छा इसका एक फीचर है कि पोर्टेबिलिटी है इसमें. मतलब कि अगर बिहार का इलाज करा सकता है, वो अगर वो चेन्नई में जाके ट्रैवल कर रहा है तो उसके अगर कार्ड है तो इलाज करा सकता है. सर मैं हूँ सर, अगर नहीं हूँ तो मुझे बता दीजिएगा. सर बात नहीं लगता है. हेलो.
Yeah, please proceed, Dr. Pankaj. You're audible.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sometimes your voice. Sir. So तो ये पोर्टेबिलिटी अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा फीचर है कि कोई भी अगर वो मरीज अगर बिहार का भी उसका कार्ड बना है तो वो यहाँ पे आके इलाज करा सकता है. यूपी में आ रहे हैं तो. और जो 3 स्टेट हमारे पास कवर नहीं है, दिल्ली, वेस्ट बंगाल और उड़ीसा भी हमारे पास नहीं है. टोटल 36 यूटी स्टेट्स में मिला के बाकी 33 स्टेट्स हमारे पास आ गए. ये 3 नहीं है, उनमें भी जाके हमने हॉस्पिटल रिकॉग्नाइज किया जो कि पोर्टेबिलिटी वाले केस, मतलब कि दिल्ली के अस्पताल बिहार वाले का इलाज कर सकते हैं. पेमेंट बिहार करेगा, स्टेट करेगा, जिसमें हम 60% हम देते हैं और 40% सरकार देती है स्टेट की. और इसके लिए एक सम ऑनलाइन ट्रांसपेरेंट सिस्टम है. देयर इज नो चांसेस ऑफ करप्शन बिकॉज no interaction there. The payment is directly to the hospital. Yes, fraud is there, and there is a strong anti-fraud system which we have. Next slide, please. तो रैंकिंग भी देना शुरू कर रहे हैं, स्टार रेटिंग भी देना शुरू कर रहे हैं, ताकि आगे चल के मरीज को चूज करने में आसानी हो। 3 तरह से स्टेट्स काम करते हैं। एक ट्रस्ट मोड पे, मतलब कि सारा का सारा पैसा 60% भारत सरकार देती है, 40% स्टेट देती है, या 90% भारत सरकार देती है, 10% स्टेट देती है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द स्टेट विच इट इज। और उस पैसे से ट्रस्ट से पूरा पूरा पेमेंट किया जाता है अप टू 5 लाख। दूसरा मेथड है इंश्योरेंस का, जिसमें पूरा 5 लाख का इंश्योरेंस मोड पे स्टे रहता है और 5 लाख तक इंश्योरेंस कंपनी पे करती है। हाइब्रिड मोड में 1.5 लाख इंश्योरेंस कंपनी देती है, उसके बाद अगर पेमेंट होता है तो 3.5 लाख ट्रस्ट मोड की तरह दिया जाता है। इसमें नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। स्टेक होल्डर सारे हैं हमारे, हम जितने भी ऑक्यूपेशनल हेल्थ के पार्ट हैं, इंडियन ऑयल है, एनटीपीसी है, कोल इंडिया है, सबके अस्पताल इसमें जुड़े हुए हैं। और हमारा भारतीय रेलवे है, ये सारे अस्पताल इसमें जुड़े हुए हैं। और प्रधानमंत्री जी की इसको सोच को आगे ले जाना चाहते हैं कि हर आदमी का इलाज फ्री हो सके थोड़े दिनों में, क्योंकि यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ कवरेज के रूप में कन्वर्ट करना जाना है। तो ये स्टेट यूटीज हैं जो थोड़े ट्रस्ट मोड पे है, जिनका पूरा ट्रीटमेंट ट्रस्ट से होता है, जो कि 22 हैं। इंश्योरेंस में 8 यूटीज और स्टेट्स हैं जो कि पूरा इंश्योरेंस मोड पे हैं। उसका करीब 700 से लेकर 1055 तक का इंश्योरेंस देके 5 लाख तक कवर हम कर पा रहे हैं। और 3 स्टेट हैं जो कि हाइब्रिड मोड पे हैं, जिसमें झारखंड, महाराष्ट्र, तमिलनाडु। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। मतलब अब ये अब सॉरी कैसे है, पहले तो हमें आइडेंटिफाई करना होता है कि वो मरीज इलाज के लिए इज ही द बेनिफिशियरी और नॉट। तो एक बेनिफिशियरी आइडेंटिफाई सिस्टम हमारा है, वो उसमें वो डाटा ऑलरेडी वहाँ पे जो आदमी अस्पताल में रहता है उसके पास है। कार्ड बना है चाहे नहीं बना है, अगर आप उसके पास जाएंगे और अपना नाम बताएंगे, आधार नंबर से अगर आप तो आधार नंबर देंगे, या आपके पास जो प्रधानमंत्री जी का लेटर अगर जो पहले मिला है वो लेके जाएंगे, या आप अपना नाम देंगे और वो अपना एरिया देंगे, पिन कोड देंगे, अगर वो उसको फाइंड करता है तो आपका वो कार्ड वहीं अस्पताल में बना है। अथवा अगर आपके कार्ड है तो आप उसको दिखा के इलाज के लिए एंटर हो सकते हैं, फिर हॉस्पिटलाइज किया जाएगा आफ्टर कंफर्मेशन ऑफ फी। और फिर आपको देखेगा कि 5 लाख में आपका कितना पैसा बचा है या 5 लाख पूरा बचा है। और अपना पैकेज वो गॉल ब्लैडर का इलाज कराना, तो वो 22,000 रुपए था पहले, अभी हम 2.2 लॉन्च कर रहे हैं तो उसमें 29 हो गया है। ऐसे ही अपेंडिक्स का पहले 11,000 था, 18,000 हो गया। रेट्स काफी रीजनेबल होते जा रहे हैं इस स्कीम के। तो करेगा, फिर उसको पता करेगा, कागज जमा करने के बाद आपका इलाज करेगा। पूरे इलाज के बाद खाना भी अस्पताल से मिलेगा, आपको इम्प्लांट भी अस्पताल से मिलेगा। आपको 1 भी रुपया खर्च नहीं करना है, जिससे आप वो 5 रुपए भी जेब में जो लाए हैं वो साथ लेके जाएंगे। ऐसा इस स्कीम का एडवांटेज है। उसके बाद आपका डिस्चार्ज होगा।
I think Dr. Pankaj has got disconnected. We'll just wait
सर
for
सर
a minute.
सॉरी, वो
Sure.
इशू हो रहा है सर। सर तो उसके
Please
बाद वो
continue.
उसका डिस्चार्ज बनाने के बाद वो अपने वो बिल को रेज करता है, और उसका पेमेंट डिपेंडिंग द स्टेट हर एक का प्रोसेस है। उत्तराखंड में 3 दिन में हो जाता है, थोड़ा उत्तर प्रदेश को लेता है, बट उनका ट्रीटमेंट इज टाइमली एंड आफ्टर ड्यू डिलिजेंस इट कम्स टू देयर अकाउंट विदाउट एनी what we say human interaction, so there is no chance of any corruption. So next slide please. तो हमारा जस्ट मैं एक और भी देता हूँ। 3 चीज हमारे यहाँ है। एक एम्पैनलमेंट का, जो कि हॉस्पिटल मॉड्यूल है, इसमें अस्पताल अपना एम्पैनलमेंट के लिए अप्लाई कर सकता है। और हम थोड़ा और सरल जो जो कि आप सारे के सारे जो पेमेंट्स हैं वो ट्रांजेक्शन मैनेजमेंट होंगे। इसमें सीजीएचएस का लोगों का भी आ चुका है। हमारा सीएपीएफ भी पूरी तरह से नेशनल हेल्थ अथॉरिटी के पास आ गया है। और आने वाले समय में हम चाह रहे हैं कि सारे के सारे आ जाए और हम कन्वर्जेंस करके सारी स्कीम का एक ही जगह से पेमेंट करें और कोई भी ह्यूमन इंटरेक्शन ना छोड़ें भारत में गवर्नमेंट का हेल्थ के बारे में। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। Audible, sir? I cannot see the screen actually.
सर
आई कैन कंटिन्यू विदाउट इट ऑल्सो। हमारे कुछ पोर्टल्स हैं जिसमें कि इनसाइड पोर्टल एक है, एक इम्पैक्ट पोर्टल है। इनसाइड पोर्टल में सारे डैशबोर्ड हमारे रहते हैं जिसमें कि हम बैलेंस शीट एंट्री का डाटा, कितने लोगों ने क्या, कौन कौन लोग आए थे, क्या क्या उसमें इलाज हुआ, क्या क्या स्टेट की डिस्ट्रिक्ट परफॉर्मेंस है, कितने हमारे प्री ऑथ रेज हुए, क्या प्रोसीजर्स किए गए। जैसे कि डायलिसिस हमारा सबसे ज़्यादा यूज प्रोसीजर है, तो हमें उससे पता लग जाएगा डैशबोर्ड से कौन से हॉस्पिटल एम्पैनलमेंट है, कितना ट्रांजेक्शन हुआ, कितने पोर्टेबिलिटी केस थे, कितने नॉर्मल केस थे, कौन से विलेज का पेनिट्रेशन ज़्यादा है। इस तरह की सारी चीज़ें आती हैं। इम्पैक्ट पोर्टल पे हम ये देखते हैं कि इसकी इंश्योरेंस वाले कितना परफॉर्मेंस कर रहे हैं, उनका डिटेल और उनकी परफॉर्मेंस हमें पता लग जाती है। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। और हमारा दूसरे पोर्टल फ्रॉड के लिए है जिसमें कि रडार एक पोर्टल है और एक फैक्ट पोर्टल है। रडार पोर्टल में रिस्क असेसमेंट करा जाता है, वी डिटेक्ट एंड एनालाइज द थिंग्स एंड वी डू द रिपोर्टिंग ऑन दैट ऑन द डैशबोर्ड एंड ट्रिगर्स आर सेट एंड the cases are sent for the national anti-fraud unit and the state anti-fraud unit. Similarly, the fraud analytic control and tracking system is there, which also provides a holistic view in the context of the risk scoring in the PMJ ecosystem. Next slide, please. We have nearly now treated ये जस्ट डाटा जून 2021 तक का, जिसमें हमने करीब करीब 2 करोड़ लोग का इलाज किया था। अब हम 2.5 करोड़ पार कर चुके हैं। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। ये जो आज की स्थिति है ये एकदम डाटा है। हमारे 33 स्टेट और यूनिटीज हमारे पास पैनल है। तेलंगाना इज द रीसेंट वन टू ज्वाइन। करीब करीब 22 से 26 हज़ार हमारे पास ऑप्शन पैनल, 13,000 पब्लिक हॉस्पिटल में, 14,000 और करीब 11 से 12,000 प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में। हम लोग करीब 12 करोड़ का इशू करते हैं और एक का इलाज होता है और एक लोगों का 2 से पेमेंट कॉल सेंटर अपना एक स्टेट ऑफ कॉल सेंटर, इसमें कि 70 लाख कॉल हमने रिसीव किए हैं, आंसर करी हैं। फुल एनएबीएच को 15% इंसेंटिव दिया है एट द रेट्स व्हिच आर ऑलरेडी देयर। जो पीटी में उसको 10% पेमेंट एक्स्ट्रा मिलता है ऑन द रेट एंड मेट्रो सिटी है या स्पेशल डिस्ट्रिक्ट है उसमें 10% मिलता है। एक हमने अपना क्वालिफिकेशन मतलब क्वालिफिकेशन सर्टिफिकेशन भी किया है एपीपीएमजे का। अगर वो सारे हमारे क्राइटेरिया फुलफिल करते हैं तो हम डोर फंडे पे 5% लग गए अगर वो एनएबीएच नहीं है। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। बट ये सारे के सारे रेट स्टेट्स पे डिपेंड करते हैं, कौन सा स्टेट ये है उसमें थोड़ा उन्होंने अपने हिसाब से उसे रखा है। सो हमारे पास 2.0 पैकेज सिस्टम था पहले, जिसमें 33 स्पेशलिटी और 1500 प्लस प्रोसीजर थे, जिसमें कि करीब हमने 200 हमने 2.97 प्रोसीजर और ऐड कर दिए हैं और रेट भी हमने इंक्रीज कर दिए हैं काफी ज्यादा अकॉर्डिंग टू प्रीवियस रेट्स। और ये कि अगर जो सर्जिकल में नहीं आते हैं उसे हम 1 लाख तक स्टेट के द्वारा और 5 लाख तक हमारे द्वारा अनस्पेसिफाइड में बुक कर सकते हैं अगर वो स्टैंडर्ड ट्रीटमेंट है और हमें लगता है कि वो मरीज की जरूरत है। तो जो पैकेज कॉस्ट में पहले आने का, पहले इन्वेस्टिगेशन का और बाद की दवाई का भी पैसा इंक्लूडेड रहता है, खाने का पैसा भी इंक्लूडेड रहता है। और अगर मल्टीपल सर्जरीज हैं तो 2 से ज्यादा चीजें आप बुक कर सकते हैं उसमें। इंसेंटिव एनएबीएच का हमने बताया ही था आपको, उसमें मिलते हैं। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। हमने 20 से 400% तक रेट किए हैं। सो कम्युनिटी हम लोग जो हमारा जो रोल है, हमारी जो ऑक्सीजन इसमें बहुत अच्छा रोल होता है क्योंकि काफी सारे अस्पताल हमारे पास इलाज चीज का कर रहे हैं और हमने किया है जिसमें कि हम पेमेंट डॉक्टर को परसेंटेज इसका हमने बोला है अस्पताल के सकता है करीब 15% तक, जिस इंसेंटिवेशन ऑफ डॉक्टर्स एंड स्टाफ शुड बी डन so that the doctors of the government can have some extra payment of the extra work now they will do treat the beneficiaries like अगर आपका Coal India already मिल रहा है, EV मिल रहा है, तो वो रिक्रूटमेंट में उसमें परसेंटेज कुछ एम्प्लॉयज को भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट ये एक बहुत अच्छा इनिशिएटिव सरकार द्वारा आया है। हम लोग इसमें एक नंबर इस्तेमाल करते हैं 1455। मैं चाहूंगा आप लोग उसे बहुत अच्छे से स्पेक्ट करें। इस नंबर पे आप जो उनका चाहे पता लगा सकता है कि वो बेनिफिशियरी है कि नहीं, या उसको कोई भी स्कीम के बारे में 24 घंटे 7 दिन 365 दिन ये नंबर चलता है। और हमारा बंदा इसके बारे में दे शुड बी नो आउट ऑफ पॉकेट एक्सपेंडिचर एंड वी रिड्यूस द आउट ऑफ पॉकेट हेल्थ ओवर द And by this, I end my talk here, and I get all of us will work for the vision of our Prime Minister and Government of India for providing the free of cost treatment to the poor, and finally going to the missing middle to give insurance to everybody everybody in India and go towards the universal health coverage and achieve the goal of SDG 3.8. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pankaj. I think that was a wonderful insight into the entire Ayushman Bharat project. It's really an important brainchild of our Prime Minister, but it has been really nicely executed, coordinated. And I think today we have much more better understanding of how we can participate and contribute into it. Thanks a lot. We'll be taking the questions towards the end. May I now invite our third speaker, Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain. Dr. Rajiv requires no introduction. He has been the continual feature enhancing our understanding and knowledge on COVID during all times. He's going to share the COVID-19 updates today. By background, Dr. Rajiv is a senior consultant health at Indian Railways with more than 40 years of experience in hospital and health administration. He's quite a versatile, eminent academician with knowledge not only across pediatrics, public health, occupational health, but also has had some great credentials in understanding of the Chinese language. He has been a fellow of the Association of Occupational Health, Delhi. He has published more than 145 scientific papers in national and international conferences, and has been a sought-after speaker by several global organizations. He also is a representative part of the EPICO organization, and I think we would be seeing him in various different sessions in the future. So without further ado, I'm handing this over to Dr. Rajiv for your session.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish. Good evening, friends. And today here we are again, Saturday evening. And once again, we take stock of the current COVID-19 epidemiological situation, because that is what we need to do even now, realizing that pandemic is still there. And pandemic being there, you need to be on your guard. But the first and foremost issue that I would like to raise today is lowering of the guard by the population in India. And I would like to share with you a video in which member Health Niti Aayog, Dr. V.K. Paul, is talking about the consequences of lowering of your guard.
Eloquently, I would draw your attention to a reality check on an assessment of how the mask usage is presently going on in our country. This comes from the Institute of Health Metrics. They have a methodology. They do these estimates for several countries, and you can also access it. It's available in public domain. The blue line, the line shows us according to their estimates, the mask usage, and you can see that just before the second surge, we were at a low level. Let's just say low level, okay? And then the cases rise very dramatically. We had a very difficult time in May and June and so on. एंड देन ऑब्वियसली वी ऑल रिस्पॉन्डेड, हमने सबने मास्क पहना, खूब पहना, हम डर गए, हमने ये आदत अपनी ठीक रखी। लेकिन अब जरा उस तरफ अगर आते हैं हम, अगस्त हो गया, गिरना शुरू हो गया, सितंबर आ गया, अक्टूबर, नवंबर और दिसंबर, हम लगभग उसी पोजीशन पे आज पहुंच गए हैं जैसे कि ये जो सर्ज आई थी हमारी उसके शुरुआत में थे, मार्च में, फरवरी में थे, हम उससे भी इनफैक्ट नीचे हैं अकॉर्डिंग टू दिस एस्टिमेट। तो इन अ वे हम एक डेंजर जोन में फिर आ गए हैं, टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग, फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, फ्रॉम अ प्रोटेक्शन capability, from the point of view of the protection capability, we are now operating at a low level, an unacceptable level, and a risky level. ये आपके सामने दिखाई दे रहा है। उस टाइम पे भी हम इतने सिचुएशन में पहुंचे थे, एक अचानक से सिचुएशन बदली, और उस सिचुएशन बदलने में ये जो लापरवाही थी कलेक्टिवली कह लीजिए किसी हद तक, वो महंगी पड़ी। हम अभी भी वार्न कर रहे हैं, बार बार साइंस कम्युनिटी वार्न कर रही है, WHO वार्न कर रहा है कि ये टाइम वो नहीं आया है कि जब हमने मास्क को हटा देना है। वैक्सीन भी और मास्क भी, वैक्सीन भी और कड़ाई भी, ये बात हमें आज भी याद रखनी है। और मैं ये भी कहना चाहूँगा कि जो ग्लोबल सीन है वो ओमिक्रॉन और नॉट बहुत ही डिस्टर्बिंग है। यूके में जो पर डे केसेस हो रहे हैं, अगर हम 10 लाख के ऊपर लेके जाएं पर मिलियन, तो 700 हो। ये लगभग जो हमने एक्सपीरियंस किया था इस साल अर्लियर पीक पे, उससे दुगने हैं, कम नहीं है, दुगना प्रकोप हो रहा है। डेल्टा का है, ये सही है, ओमिक्रॉन थोड़ा योगदान कर रहा है। फ्रांस में भी लगभग दुगने हैं, यूएस में उतने हैं जितने कि हमारे इस फेज़ में हमने एक्सपीरियंस किया, 3-4 लाख पर डे। ग्लोबल सिचुएशन से हमें सीख लेनी चाहिए। हम उसके रीज़न भी कुछ हद तक समझते हैं, हम एक्सप्लेन भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन इस वायरस की पेंडेमिक में बहुत सरप्राइजेस, कई मोड़ आ रहे हैं इस फिल्म में, इसलिए सजग रहना बेहतर होगा। एंड डेफिनेटली एक जो हमारा ज़रिया है अपने आप को बचाने का, मास्क के द्वारा, जो हम कह रहे हैं कि यूनिवर्सल वैक्सीन है, सोशल वैक्सीन है, हर वेरिएंट के लिए इफेक्टिव वैक्सीन है ये, हर वेरिएंट, क्योंकि उसने वेरिएंट नहीं अंदर जाना। अभी वेरिएंट इतने स्मार्ट नहीं हुए हैं कि ये मास्क को छिद्रित कर सकें। तो विनती ये है कि ये जो सिचुएशन ऐसे चली हुई है, ये महंगी पड़ सकती है। हमें एक फिर नैरेटिव पैदा करना है, चाहे हम ग्लोबल सिचुएशन के नाम पे करें, चाहे इसलिए करें कि ओमिक्रॉन की थ्रेट आई है, लेकिन अपने आप को बचाने के लिए ये जो एक प्रैक्टिस है, इसको अपनाना, वी आर ड्यूटी बाउंड, और हमें एक दूसरे की मदद करनी चाहिए कि ये मैसेज जाए और एक फिर माहौल बने कि इस कर्व को हम ऊपर लेके आएँ, और ऐसा ना हो कि इस वायरस की पकड़ में और नए वेरिएंट के रूप में जो चैलेंज आ रहा है उसमें हमें मुश्किल पैदा हो। My second point.
So what you have seen is a fact that we are not vigilant enough, and the mask usage has gone down substantially to a very risky stage where Omicron and mask usage lowering shall cause disastrous consequences. The message is that we need to understand that mask usage is a necessity even after vaccination, even after full vaccination, so to say. Let's review the COVID-19 epidemiological situation in the context of Omicron first. Next slide, please. Yes, this is important. India has so far reported 32 cases of Omicron from 5 different states: UK, Denmark, and South Africa, the top 3 countries with the highest Omicron cases. And the total Omicron cases across the world have been almost touching 3,000 now. And probable cases are more than 78,000. And look at the trajectory of the global cumulative Omicron cases, how dramatically They have risen right from 24 November till yesterday. And countries affected now have crossed 60, starting with 2 countries on 24 November. Now it is crossed 60 countries are affected. And how, in spite of all the screening measures, all the measures that all the governments are taking across the world, the cases are increasing every day. And even in India, the cases are increasing. Let's see further. Next slide, please. This is some good news and the bad news about the Omicron. Good news is that transmission is spread. We know how to reduce by mitigation measures, that is masks, especially medical grade, distancing, ventilation, and air filtration. Good in the context of vaccine effectiveness of Pfizer gets to 75% with a booster. We do not know the duration. Good news is also illness severity and virulence, markedly less hospitalization than prior variants. Cases are mostly mild. Good news that immune escape, that it's blunted by the 3rd shot. Good news that reinfection prior COVID plus vaccination provides solid protection. But there is bad news as well. Cases are doubling every 2-3 days, 3-fold higher transmission than Delta for household contacts. Vaccine effectiveness dropped to 35% with only 2 doses. Booster got to 95% with Delta. A lot more cases are happening, so even when less severe, absolute numbers can be high. Reduced vaccine effectiveness is bad news. Monoclonal antibodies are less effective. Bad news. Key driver of rapid spread. Bad news. At least 2.5 times increase compared with prior variants. Again, bad news. UK data shows 3 to 8 times of Delta. So there is good news, there is bad news. So be on your guard. Next slide, please. Let's review the consensus, the global consensus from the World Health Organization. Omicron is the 5th SARS-CoV-2 variant to be designated as a variant of concern by WHO, following the designation of Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta variants. The first known laboratory confirmed case of Omicron was identified from a specimen collected on 9th of November 2021 in South Africa, when the variant, that is Pango nomenclature, B11529, first reported to WHO on 24th November. In consultation with the Technical Advisory Group on Virus Evolution, that is tag V, WHO designated B11529 as a variant of concern on 26th of November in view of the potential for enhanced transmissibility and a degree of immune escape, given the number of mutations, that is 26 to 32 in the spike protein, as well as concerning initial epidemiological reports from South Africa, including signals of increased risk of reinfection. We present an update on the current situation in terms of epidemiology and transmissibility, clinical severity, risk of reinfection, and the potential impact on diagnostics, vaccines, and therapeutics. As more data are analyzed and understood about the potential implications that Omicron may have on the epidemiology, transmissibility, clinical severity, prevention and treatment of SARS-CoV-2 infection, our understanding of this variant will continue to evolve, and we will issue updates as further evidence becomes available. Next slide, please. Let's look at epidemiology. In South Africa, where Omicron was first reported, the case incidence of COVID-19 has continued to rise since the 2nd week of November, with 62,021 new cases reported between 29 November and 5 December. 111% increase compared to the previous week. An increase in the test positivity rate, that is TPR, has also been seen from 1.2% the week beginning the 7th of November to 22.4% the week beginning 2nd of December. An initial increase in incidence in Gauteng province in mid-November was thought in part to be due to the cluster of cases among students at the university. Very large increases in the weekly incidence of cases have also been seen in some countries neighboring South Africa, including Eswatini, that is 1,990%, Zimbabwe, 1,361%, Mozambique, 1,207%, Namibia, 681%, and Lesotho, 219%. These other countries have very low vaccination coverage, ranging from 12.1% of the total population fully vaccinated in Namibia to 26.7% in Lesotho. In South Africa, 25.2% of the total population is fully vaccinated, while drivers of these increases remain unknown. It is plausible that spread of Omicron in combination with enhanced testing following the declaration of our variant of concern play a role together with the relaxation of public health and social measures and suboptimal immunization coverage. So this is a combination of factors which are led to this situation. Among countries in other regions reporting increasing spread of the Omicron variant, hundreds of cases of this variant have now been reported from countries in other regions. Since the last update published on 30th November, additional countries, all 6 WHO regions have reported confirmed cases of the Omicron variant. As of 7th of December 2021, the Omicron variant has been confirmed in 57 countries. However, given the predominant circulation of the Delta variant in many countries, particularly in countries in the European region and the United States of America, it is too early to draw any conclusions about the impact of Omicron will have on the global epidemiology of COVID-19. Next slide, please. Let's look at another factor, that is transmissibility. While there seems to be evidence that the Omicron variant may have a growth advantage over other circulating variants, it is unknown whether this will translate into increased transmissibility. Based on several assumptions about the growth advantage, timing of introduction in the European region, and the population mixing and public health and social measures implementation, the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control forecasted that if 1% of SARS-CoV-2 infections are due to the Omicron variant, it will become dominant in the Europe, comprising more than 50% of new infections by 1st of January 2022, with a growth advantage of more than 120%. And by 1st March 2022, with a growth advantage of more than 30%. Look at the figures. Shocking. Ongoing and planned epidemiological studies, including detailed cluster investigations, contact tracing, and household transmission studies, coupled with utilization studies from people previously vaccinated or infected, and studies of vaccine effectiveness will help improve our understanding of the interplay between increased transmissibility and immune escape as drivers of increased transmission. Next slide, please. Let's look at clinical severity. Currently, only limited data are available, making it challenging to assess any changes in disease severity with the Omicron variant. As of 6th of December, all of the 212 confirmed cases identified in 18 European Union countries for which there was information available on severity were asymptomatic or mild. While South Africa saw an 82% increase in hospital admissions due to COVID-19, that is from 502 to 912 during the week 28 November to 4 December 2021, it is not yet known the proportion of these with the Omicron variant. Even if the severity is equal or potentially even lower than for Delta variant, it is expected that hospitalization will increase if more people become infected. And there will be a time lag between an increase in the incidence of cases and an increase in the incidence of deaths. Further information is needed to fully understand the clinical picture of those infected with the Omicron variant, and WHO encourages countries to contribute to the collection and sharing of hospitalized patient data through the WHO COVID-19 clinical data platform. And this data platform is a very useful platform. Let's look at the risk of reinfection. Preliminary analysis suggests that the mutations present in the Omicron variant may reduce neutralizing activity of antibodies, resulting in reduced protection from natural immunity. This may explain why the variant seems to be spreading rapidly in a highly immune population, such as South Africa, in which current vaccination coverage in adults is about 35%, but in which seroprevalence levels are estimated to be as high as 60 to 80% due to fast infection, according to the recent epidemiological studies and modeling. A modeling study, which is a preprint based on the data from nearly 3 million individuals in South Africa with a laboratory confirmed infection at least 90 days prior, found an increase in the risk of reinfection during November 2021 compared to time periods earlier in the pandemic. That is estimated relative hazard ratio for reinfection versus primary infection of 2.39, with a confidence interval, 95% confidence interval of 1.88 to 3.11 from 1st to 27 November 2021, compared to wave 1, which was from June to September 2020, corresponding with the emergence of the Omicron variant. This information provides an initial assessment of the risk of reinfection. However, further studies are needed to confirm this, including the ability of the Omicron variant to infect or reinfect those who have been vaccinated, as well as to determine the severity of these breakthrough or reinfections. Let's look at another dimension, impact on the diagnostics. SARS-CoV-2 infection can be diagnosed using either molecular tests, that is NAT or PCR, or antigen detection assays. Interim guidance on diagnostic testing for SARS-CoV-2 can be seen on the WHO website, and on the use of antigen detection tests that can be found in the next slide. PCR tests that include multiple gene targets are unlikely to be affected and should continue to be used to detect SARS-CoV-2 infection, including the Omicron variant. This has been confirmed by statements issued by the suppliers as well as the US FDA based on sequence analysis. The majority of Omicron variant sequences reported include a 69 to 70 deletion mutation in the spike protein. There are some public sequences lacking this mutation, and at the present time, it is unclear if this reflects true sequence diversity or is a sequencing artifact. Presence of 69 to 70 deletion causes dropout of some S gene targets of PCR assays, such as TAC-PATH COVID-19 combo kit and TAC-PATH COVID-19 CE-IVD RT-PCR kit, which is from Thermo Fisher Scientific. This S gene target failure, that is SGTF, can be used as a marker suggestive of Omicron. However, confirmation should be performed by sequencing the sample, as this deletion is found in other variants of concern, that, for example, alpha and subsets of gamma and delta, currently circulating at low levels globally, but possibly circulating at higher levels locally. Next slide, please. All 4 WHO emergency use listing approved antigen detection rapid diagnostics tests listed in the lower part of the slide target the nucleocapsid protein of SARS-CoV-2. The vast majority of Omicron sequences reported to date include the G204R and R203K mutations in the nucleocapsid protein, which are present in many other variants currently in circulation. This has not been reported to affect the accuracy of rapid diagnostic tests to detect SARS-CoV-2. In addition, the majority of Omicron sequences contain a 3 amino acid deletion at position 31 to 33 and the P13L mutation in the nucleocapsid protein. The specific impact of these mutations on the performance of rapid diagnostic tests is currently unclear. Official statements from several rapid diagnostic test suppliers, including 2 with EUL-approved assays, indicate that based on sequence analysis, the performance of their test is not impacted by the Omicron variant. Preliminary laboratory evidence is emerging that independently confirms that rapid diagnostic tests can accurately diagnose infection with Omicron variant. To date, there have been no reported misdiagnosis, that is false negative results, for any WHO EUL-approved diagnostic product in relation to Omicron. The 4 products that are licensed with EUL from WHO are 1 from Premier Medical Corporation Private Limited, 2 are from Abbott Rapid Diagnostic Gina GmbH, and 1 from SD Biosensor, as given in the slide on the lower part. Next slide. Let's look at the impact on vaccines. There is a need for more data or to assess whether the mutations present on the Omicron variant may result in reduced protection from vaccine-derived immunity and data on vaccine effectiveness, including the use of additional vaccination doses. WHO will continue to work with partners to monitor and evaluate these data once they become available. Vaccine effectiveness studies are vital to understand how vaccines protect against infection, symptomatic and severe disease, and death. Impacts on treatment. WHO continues to work with researchers to understand the effectiveness of treatments against the Omicron variant. However, interleukin-6 receptor blockers and corticosteroids are expected to continue to be effective in the management of patients with severe disease. Next slide. This is the perfect 6-month cycle of COVID-19 cases in South Africa. This is the graph that you see of South Africa. Blue one is cases and red is deaths. And perfect 3 waves and the 4th wave now with Omicron. Next slide. Let's come back to India. This is the slide of districts in India from 3rd to December to 9th December, where the weekly district-wise positivity rate is more than 10%. Kerala, 2 districts, Kozhikode and Thiruvananthapuram. In Mizoram, Mizoram, there are 5 districts where Nantial, Sarchit, Champhai, Logli, and Mamit, more than 10%. Sikkim, South District, 25.78% positivity with 100% RT-PCR testing done. Positivity rate is coming to be 25.78%. Imagine, this is India. Next slide, please. This is the list of districts where the weekly district-wise positivity rates is between 5 to 10%. And look at the range of states and districts. Arunachal 1, West Kameng, Kerala, Kottayam, Idukki, Wayanad, Ernakulam, Kollam, Kannur, Thrissur, and Pathanamthitta. Manipur, Imphal West and Imphal East. Mizoram, Kaizal, Aizawl, Longtai, Saithal, Saiha. Nagaland, Dimapur, Pondicherry, Mahe, and West Bengal, Kolkata. These are the districts which are showing more than 5% and less than 10%. There are 19 districts which are showing more than 5% and 10% positivity rate in the week 3rd December to 9th December. Next slide. Let's go now to Southeast Asia region. What we see since July 2021, the incidence of cases in Southeast Asia region has continued to decline with over 109,000 new cases reported this week, which is a 10% decrease as compared to the previous week. Only one country reported an increase of over 10%, that is Timor-Leste. The highest number of new cases continue to be reported from India with 60,732 with figures similar to the previous week. Thailand with 18% decrease and Sri Lanka with 12% decrease. The number of new weekly deaths, however, increased by 49% as compared with the previous week, with over 5,300 new deaths reported this week. The majority being reported from India, 4,772 new deaths with 65% increase. While Thailand and Sri Lanka reported the second and third highest number of deaths this past week, both countries reported a decline. 237 new deaths with 156 new deaths with and 12% decrease respectively. Next slide. This is the global trend of the pandemic waves in different regions of the World Health Organization. And the biggest wave that you are seeing is the one with green, that is Europe. And that is expanding. So Europe is the worst affected in the world today. Next slide. Here you see change in new cases in the last 7 days compared to the previous 7 days. And what you see, Africa, look at Africa, 79% increase, week on week, 79% increase. And look at Americas, 21% increase. If you go to the column of deaths, change in new deaths in last 7 days, you find 49% increase in Southeast Asia and 38% increase in the Americas. Overall, there is a 10% increase in the deaths compared to the previous week. Next slide. This is the 6 waves that you're seeing in the 6 WHO regions, and the green one is scary, and Africa also is scary, how the 4th wave is rising. And Europe is facing the worst ever in the pandemic. And also you must see Western Pacific is nowhere near going down to 0. Next slide. Here I'm showing 6 countries, and next is a slide also will be having 6 countries, so 12 top worst affected countries, and the waves, the shape of the wave. Look at the wave of USA. No clue, no intention to go down to 0. UK, again, no intention. In fact, the UK wave is going up, up, and up. Next slide, please. Here you find, look at France. France is going sharply up. Germany, again, going sharply up. And Italy, again, has started going up. So Europe, many countries are getting affected at the same time. That is the Europe being the epicenter of the world today. Next slide, please. This is the ranking of the countries in terms of cases we reported in the last 7 days. Top being USA, second being Germany, third UK, fourth France, fifth the Russian Federation, sixth Poland, then Turkey, Netherlands, and South Africa, with all reporting more than 1 lakh cases. And US is reporting 8 lakh cases. Like last 24 hours, it reported 1,25,070 cases. Next slide. This is the deaths newly reported in the last 7 days, the rank of the countries. Highest is USA, second Russian Federation, then India, Poland, Ukraine, Germany, Vietnam, Turkey, and Hungary. All are reporting more than 1,000 deaths in a week. And USA and Russian Federation both reported more than 8,000 deaths in a week. And last 24 hours, both reported more than 1,000 deaths. In fact, USA reported 1,520 deaths in the last 24 hours. Next slide, please. This is the map of the world with color coding with cases per 1 lakh population reported by countries during the week 29 November to 5th of December. And dark brown is the worst figure. And where is that color? It is in the entire Europe. Entire Europe is worse affected. Next slide. And this is the map of the world with COVID-19 deaths per 1 lakh population reported by country during the week 29 November to 5th December. And the worst color is the darkest blue. And where do you find this color? Again, you find this color in Eastern Europe. There, the maximum deaths are occurring. Next slide. This is the prevalence of variants of concern, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta in the last 60 days, and historic
Recording in progress.
as on date of 7th of November 2021. The worst you're seeing, the delta is there all across the world, all the continents. And you find gamma being more prevalent in Latin America and South America. And you find beta is in South Africa. And you find alpha still available in South America. Next slide. This is the presence of variant of concern, Omicron. Data is as on 7th of December 2021. It is showing 54 countries have verified the occurrence of Omicron variant as on date. And 3 countries were under verification. So 57 countries, but today, as on today, it is 60 countries. Next slide. I'll again remind you that from 13 to 15 December 2021, WHO is organizing the 10th Global Conference on Health Promotion for Well-being, Equity, and Sustainable Development. And registration is free for all. 3 days of excellent sessions on health promotion. And the website is 10gchp.org. Do register and watch excellent program by World Health Organization. Next slide. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. I'm thankful for your generosity because you have given your attention to the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. I think as always, these insights are really valuable. I think it gives us a great insight of what's happening. Now, let me open up the session for questions. And now the session is open for any specific questions from the participants.
There's one question in the chat box where Shivangi Garg has asked a question from Dr. Aruna.
Yeah. Dr. Pankaj, would you like to actually take the question?
Yeah, sure, sir. Please can you just ask the question, sir, actually?
Yeah. So the question which has come up is, given the increasing usage of advanced tech solutions, what possibilities, further synergies do you foresee with the regards to artificial intelligence, machine learning for supporting the Indian healthcare delivery system? I think during the COVID pandemic, there were several startups which came across which helped in the diagnosis management of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is NHA also going to actually adopt or incorporate any kind of technologies, including the not so mature ones? What's the progressive look forward? Is NHA doing something on that as well?
Absolutely, sir. Thanks for the question. It's a nice question, and it is what NHA is looking at. AI, ML, and NLP are the future, and it will be used for all the things, including the BIS, TMS, the grievance redressal, all kind of things it will be used for, and it will make it easier. The main thing is this artificial intelligence, the manual is natural process language processing, and is that the computer learns the things over a period of time, and it does it on its own. For example, auto adjudication of the claims will be the first thing to it, and the grievance. These will be automatically redressed and automatically paid. The claims will automatically paid using the AI ML in near future.
Fantastic. I think that sounds really great. It's a promising start, and I think it's a long journey going forward. But I think the seeds have been sown. Thanks a lot, Dr. Pankaj. Let me open up for other questions.
Does Shivangi want to say something? She has unmuted.
First, thank you very much for taking up this question. I was looking actually maybe for more insights into towards this. How is the plan towards implementing or incorporating such techs? Of course, there is a positive connotation attached to such technologies being deployed and improving the healthcare outcomes. But I think this is not maybe the right time or the right platform to discuss in details. And maybe we can have another session with Dr. Pankaj to just specifically talk about how the futuristic outlook of developing this Ayushman Bharat program for India looks like. But thank you for the opportunity and addressing.
I'll just comment on that for you. That the AI/ML is being taken up seriously, and we have been asked several companies to present their products, and they're in the process of trying to shortlist the things and do a POC title kind of stuff, so that we can go forward in all parts of the
Great. Sounds really promising. All the very best as well to NHA as well.
Thank you.
And we look forward.
Thank you.
All right. So one question, Dr. Pankaj, in the terms of outreach, what do you see as the broader targets for the next couple of years for NHA? So how many more hospitals, how many more institutions are going to get empaneled, and how much outreach is going to get included now?
We will be trying to include each and every hospital which is willing to do and participate with us. But just the main thing is the quality thing, and we take it very seriously that the care should be quality care, not just the care which is of no use. So if the quality care hospital approach us, we will definitely be empaneling them. And unfortunately, the few areas that don't have private hospitals in that area, like the hills, and also that's the issue. Otherwise, we are going to empanel each and every good hospital which has the quality service and providing quality service, including 10, 20 beds, maybe up to 200 beds, 700 beds, whatever. The beds and maybe, but the quality of care should be there. And if they are NABH and kind of already accredited hospitals with and registered with CGH and all, will be taking it directly.
All right. I think thanks, Dr. Pankaj. One question for Dr. Rajeev. In the terms of the booster, we had discussed last week about an impending approach which might be useful. Do you have any updates on the booster vaccination for COVID?
Well, this is related to Omicron as well. There is serious thinking going on for introducing booster doses on a limited manner in India, and the meeting has been inconclusive. Further research is being done by ICMR, and we shall sometime in the first half of January, we shall hear a substantive decision on the same.
Great. All right. So any further questions, guys? Anyone would like to have any questions for the speakers?
Dr. Tyagaraja is there? Dr. Kamla Partyal, Dr. Rotithor, if they want to make any comment. Yes, Dr. Rotithor.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Basically, I want to ask you, we always see first and second doses are not finished. And after that, again, they will give a guideline you should take booster for all. So do you see the scenario like this?
No, no, not at all. In fact, the only thought that is going on in the Entagi is for consideration or opening of booster doses only for two categories. That is a high risk, that is immunocompromised individuals and healthcare workers. So at the moment, the introduction of the third dose or the booster dose is being considered at the Government of India level, that is Entagi, only for these two specific groups. So there's no thought at the moment for opening it for other groups, also leave aside for general population.
Okay.
Dr. Kamla Fartial would like to say anything?
I also note that our audience has Dr. Debsikdar and Dr. Shetty as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or comments? Did I see Dr. Tyagaraja unmuted?
No, he's muted at the moment. I think we can call it a day now.
All right. So thank you, everybody. It has been a great pleasure to have all of you together. Wishing you a very happy weekend and looking forward to meeting you again next week with an interesting topic. Thank you so much and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.